Moving on to this now, sport documentaries have enjoyed a revival over the last couple of years, and behind-the-scenes series have helped to bring in new audiences from Formula One to golf and tennis. Now, a series uncovering some of South Africa and the continent's big sporting scandals have provided another look at the biggest issues facing sport in Africa. Claire McArdle is the co-founder of CMG Productions and served as the executive producer on two recent documentary series for Showmax, Dark Side of Glory and False Glory. She joins us now. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Good to be chatting to you. These are documentaries that overlap sport, life and crime, but where did the interest come from?
So we've been in this space for a while, looking at how sport intersects with other issues across society, and increasingly we were seeing issues around sort of sport and crime. And I think there were some really stories, particularly in Dark Side of Glory, that felt very prescient and felt that they were covering issues that we really wanted to look at as producers, particularly the story that was covered in Death in the Heartlands, which we've seen sadly back in the news again this week.
It's heart-wrenching to think that despite what you guys showed on that documentary, we had Rebecca Cheptegei, her life being cut short in the most horrific way, just another incident of gender-based violence. But what seems to be particular in Kenya, which is what you managed to show in Death in the Heartlands, as well as this recent incident with Rebecca Cheptegei, is that it seems to be with elite athletes, women who other women and young girls look up to as being sporting heroines. Doing that documentary, did you find any particular reason, or can you think of any reason why it's so?
Certainly what seems to be the case, and this is what people like Viola Cheptu at Turip's Angels, that was set up in the aftermath of the three murders that we cover. And also Dr. Yetzer from the Stanford School of Medicine, who we worked with on this documentary, identify, is that these women are exhibiting high levels of earning capacity, and they are being targeted primarily for that earning capacity. So it's quite a endemic problem, particularly around centres in Kenya, like Iten, where we're seeing lots of young women traveling to train, traveling to work with coaches. There is no system around who can coach, who can approach these women, who can tell them that they will get them onto the international athletics stage. And sadly, it seems that has become a place that has become sort of ripe for abuse of these women.
How did you personally feel when you saw the story about Rebecca Cheptegei?
It was just absolutely devastating. I couldn't believe, but sadly also I could believe, that we were seeing this yet again, that a mere sort of 3 years after the deaths of three athletes within 6 months, we were seeing this pattern repeat itself again. We were seeing an elite female athlete being murdered over what appears to be, and I know this is a case that needs to go through the courts, but appears to be by her partner and in a dispute around land. And it was really actually incredibly affecting. And one of the things that I think is so important for documentary makers and those of us in the media is really to shine a light on these cases, and shine that light hard into corners that sometimes we don't want to look at, so that we can play our part in bringing a stop to these horrific cases.
Did you have a sense that after your documentary and after the well-publicized case of Agnes Tirop's murder, that something would have shifted, and that just doesn't seem to be the case?
I think there's certainly a process that has been happening. I think there is certainly hope there in terms of the work that is being done, and the amazing work that charities like Turip's Angels are trying to do. But that really needs to be to be backed up. I think the world of athletics needs to look at how it can support these women. I think we need to look at sort of broadly how coaches and people who have access to athletes are vetted, how they are registered, how they are able to come into contact with young women and girls and exploit them has to be addressed. And I think there was a lot of coverage around Agnes's death. There was less so around Edith and Damaris, and even in the reporting, some of the reporting over the last few days, sort of Muthoni is missed off that list of female athletes who have been killed in Kenya, possibly because she was at a lower level in terms of her athletic capabilities. But it shows that it's happening at every level within the system. And my hope is that we continue to have these conversations and we continue to try and move forward and protect women in sport.
Speaking about uncovering unsavory trends on the continent, one of the latest episodes in the series is baby footballers. This is where young boys with massive footballing dreams were actually illegally brought into Italy. Do you find that this still happens, or you want to maybe just help us understand how this actually even works?
Yeah, so in the baby footballers case, which is the first case in Europe to go to court around the trafficking of underage footballers into Europe from the African continent. And what is happening there is that there is a FIFA article called Article 19, which is supposed to stop the movement of young boys in football before they are at an age where they can support themselves, or I think it's under 18. And what the baby footballers case shows is young boys and their coach coming across from the Ivory Coast, thinking they're playing in a tournament in Italy, but actually ending up being adopted by Italian families and ending up in the footballing system in Europe. And estimates are that there are thousands of young boys brought across in this way to subvert that system. And really it plays into a broader piece around football as a business and football exploiting labour in a way that many other industries do. And we know that human trafficking is a huge issue along with modern slavery. And this is just another example, but this time it's with football, and therefore it sort of draws a little bit more attention.
Claire McArdle is co-founder of CMG Productions for documentary series that shine the spotlight and also in doing so bring advocacy to some of the most important issues in sport on the continent. Thanks so much for your time chatting to us here on Newzroom Afrika from the UK.